Hello and welcome back to Tips of the Trade by Somms for Somms. This is our special 6-month edition. We've made it half a year. All right, that's pretty exciting. Thanks for being with us, and we've had some great guests. We're going to come full circle here today, and we're going to bring back our first guest, Kenny Koda. And we're going to do a little change up, so I'm going to turn that over to Kenny now, and we'll get on with the show.
Well, first of all, I think we all have to wish Scott a happy birthday. And in honor of Scott's birthday, no one's ever interviewed Scott, so I'm gonna ask him some of the questions
Probably a
here.
good thing, but yeah.
Well, so let's start with the basic, the easy questions. What is the Steelers' record going to be this year?
Yeah, well, you know, they've got some rookies, a great new class, a little disappointed in a couple
All right,
seasons.
we just lost 50% of our audience, so let's get back on topic. How did you get into wine, and where are you today?
Where am I today? Well, I am the host of Tips of the Trade by Somms for Somms, which is kind of the pinnacle of my career thus far. Well, you know, it's interesting. I always ask everybody, how did you get to this important place? And for me, it's been a rapid, kind of crazy trip. I spent the first 15 years after I got out of college as an art dealer. I sold American paintings from 1850 to 1950 in New York and in California and other places in between. I worked for Sotheby's and Christie's in New York and moved out to California to work for Butterfields in San Francisco. And that's when I got into wine because I lived in San Francisco, height of the dot-com boom, and everybody was talking about wine out here. So I figured I better learn something about this stuff really quick. So got into it. On the weekends, I would come up to Napa and Sonoma, cruise around the wineries, and I guess it's just that thing about when you take on an inexhaustible subject matter, you just want to learn more and more and more and more. So obviously wine was one of those things that had that kind of appeal, and it played the same buttons as the art thing did, as far as it's a culture, it's tied to a place and people and history. So, you know, it was an easy transition in that regard to go from paintings to what people were drinking throughout the centuries. And, you know, it's all the same Europe driven, but it's around the world, and there's great American stuff as well. So it was an easy transition. I left California, ended up back in Texas. Had a gallery in Dallas, but decided to stay in the wine business. And on the side, I worked for Specs, a great retailer down in Houston, and got some floor experience, actually selling wine, dealing with things, learning on the other side, talking to people. And that was really fun. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it so much that when I got back in the art business, moved to Dallas to work for an auction house up there, I kept it as a part of what I was doing. And so I worked in a small boutique shop called Chateau Wine Market in Dallas with Amir Tazarade, and learned a lot with him. And that was a great experience too, working with great wines. And just kept that as part of what I was doing. And finally, I got to the point where I wanted to transition out of art, and there was this wine thing to fall back on. And that
how old are you at this point?
I was like, gosh, probably 5. You know, I was like 35, maybe something like that at the time. And you know, transitioned to the wine thing. And one of the great things about wine is you can move forward quickly if you're really good and you are dedicated and really work hard.
I'm going to cut you off.
You can do.
You can move quickly, but no one is going to stay in the wine industry, especially retail to the restaurant, unless you have some major mentors, unless you have some people that are going to guide you, make sure that you're just not taking up space on the floor. And you mentioned one already, but
sure.
Who helped kind of funnel you in?
Well, you know, that was a serendipitous thing that kind of comes back to where I was last week. One of the great things about being a wine person in Texas around that time was this amazing thing called TechSom that was going on. It was in its early stages back then, but I did my intro with the court in 2006. And then Drew Hendricks and James Tidwell gave me a pass to attend the rest of the seminars and everything. And that was really kind of what lit the fire for me about getting into the restaurant business and all that, was because I'm looking up at the guys like Guy Stout and Greg Harrington and Keith Goldston and you know, those were and Larry O'Brien were the masters in my intro class. I was like, wow, these guys are really cool. I like what they're doing. That's really great. And then I sat in the seminars and tasted some Chablis, tasted some Nebbiolo, tasted a Bierzo for the first time. I was like, wow, these wines are amazing. This is really cool. And so a few months after that, I moved to the restaurant side. I got incredibly fortunate that I met Mark LaRocca, the GM at Stephen Pyle's restaurant, who, I don't know why he did, but he decided to take a chance on me to turn over the wine program at one of Dallas's best restaurants to somebody who'd never been on the floor of a restaurant before. But I was enthusiastic, and I went out there and took on the program and really had a great time with that. And then, the serendipity kept rolling, where I got a letter from Paul Roberts on French Laundry Stationery saying there are these externships at the French Laundry that would you like to do one? I was like, wow, how do they even know I exist? Much less, that I'd be interested in doing that. So I threw my hat in the ring. Next thing you know, a couple of months later, I'm out here on the floor of the French Laundry working side by side with guys like Sir Lucero and, Gregory Castles and Michael Ireland and, a bunch of amazing people. Back Dennis Kelly when he was on a captain on the floor when he passed advanced and sitting in the tasting group. I mean, that really formed the core of my foundation in service and wine, and it really launched me on where I was going. I went back to Dallas, again, a great mentor relationship with Michael Flynn, who took me under his wing and showed me the ropes. He's one of the consummate professionals in the industry, and I got to draft off of him and see how a pro behaves. And that's kind of where the idea of this program came from, is from these types of experiences with these great people, is, how do we get that forward to bring other people along that may not have those advantages.
Well, I'm gonna go off script here a little bit.
There's no script.
I've got some questions that I'm gonna free form a bit. One of the points of the show is just Somms for Somms, and you said that it sounded like you were really young in your career when you were given your first list.
Yes, yeah, I was. I'd worked in retail, so I knew a lot of producers, I knew a lot of wines, and my knowledge was really good. My experience on the floor was non-existent.
So your knowledge was good. This is you're walking to exactly where I wanted you to go. Your producer knowledge was good. Mm-hmm. Your wine knowledge was good. But you can have all the wine knowledge in the world, but you had to put together a profitable program.
True.
Did you? And you inherited a list. You inherited a program.
I inherited a program, and it was a good program, and it was a good list. I mean, we had a $90,000 inventory. We had a nice wine room, and obviously the restaurant was known for, it was a 5-star Dallas Morning News restaurant, so it was known for great service and great food. And Stephen Powles is one of the iconic chefs of Dallas. So yeah, it was a lot to take on.
So you're young. You're in charge of an established list, but now you want to put your thumbprint on it a little bit. Did you make any mistakes? Did you do something that you would say, man?
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't even know how to taste. I remember the first time I met Peter Wasserman.
I blind tasted. I'm not.
No, I mean taste, like the protocol of tasting in a restaurant environment. Peter Wasserman and the folks from Lafarge were having dinner or lunch at the table in the restaurant. And they're like, well, we want to taste the wines. And I'd heard of Lafarge, but, hadn't had it. But I knew it was like, a big deal. But so I didn't know what to do. So I took the wines from the table and went over to the bar and tasted them at the bar, and then went back over to the table and talked to him about it. I didn't want to sit down with him at the table because that's like not something you do on the floor of a restaurant, right? And I tasted the wines, and we had Claude Chen, and we had like a bunch of the Primer Cruise. The wines are great, but we're selling cowboy ribeyes. Everything is dusted with chili pepper and stuff. That just didn't make sense for that list. So I was like, thanks. I know you guys this is some of the best wines in what they are, but Burgundy and this food doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I decided to pass on Lafarge. That was a really brilliant move. But, it turned out my instincts were pretty good in that I was always thinking about what works for the program and what's going to make the guests and work with the food and make the chef look good. I've always said that's my job.
Right.
As a somm, my job is to make the chef look good.
Which keep the customers happy.
When you're working with a guy like John Teaser, that's a good thing a good mindset to have. But as long as you're doing that, making the guests happy and making the chef look good, then you're doing your job.
Well, let's say did you inherit anything on that list that you wish you didn't?
Oh yeah, there was all kinds of stuff. I had some $50 wholesale German Spätburgunder, which back then I didn't know what I was going to do with. It came in a bottle like this.
Well, there's probably enough oak on it to go with some of those cowboy ribeyes.
I don't know why it was there. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I looked at my $90,000 inventory, and I probably had $50,000 that was wine that I could work with, and I had another $40,000 that I had no idea what to do with. So being stuck with that much dead wood, because I had to keep the program running, I vowed to not buy anything that I didn't think I could sell.
Can you give me an example?
Well, an example, I tasted Foradori Tirol to go. I didn't know anything what Teraldigo was back then.
That's a mainstream grape.
Yeah, well, nowadays. But I loved it. It was great. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. It wasn't even expensive. It was like $15 wholesale, So I was like, okay, I love this wine. I think it'll go with this. Let me have 3 bottles, and I'll see how it goes.
3, so you broke a case.
3 bottles, yeah.
And you paid the broken case fee, and you were okay with it.
There wasn't one, actually, back then, so it was good. So I threw it on the list, and I sold all 3 bottles that night. So I was like, okay, this is going to work. And I went ahead and put it on the list and rolled with it for a while. But, I think it's important that, and I kind of created this credo that I've held ever since, which is go ahead and sell whatever you want to sell. If you're really enthusiastic and excited about something weird, as long as you can convince someone to buy it and move it through, then that's great. But don't just buy something and stick it on the list because it's like the cool thing of the day and then forget about it and then move on to other things. You end up with a bunch of dead wood, and then maybe you leave and go somewhere else, and someone's going to come and they're not going to know what that story is that makes it so cool. And, it's going to languish. And I've inherited enough programs with enough dead wood that's just the worst thing, when you take over a program and there's just stuff that somebody was excited about, but, you don't know what to do with it and it doesn't fit. And, that's something that's a pitfall that some people fall into, but it's something that's very important to try to avoid.
How long have you been off the floor now?
Gee, I guess, well, I don't know if we count Meadowood on the floor or not. I did some floor stuff there, but not actively on the floor.
We're not going to count that.
All right, so I guess 3-4 years.
Has anything happened in the last 3 or 4 years in the industry that makes you say, gee, if I had that, or had this been in fashion 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have killed it.
Well,
not that you didn't.
Not to, well, okay. The thing that gets me about what's happening in the trends in the industry right now is it's stuff that we were doing 5, 6, 7 years ago. Back at the mansion, we were pouring chocolate by the glass and Duro Reds and Falangina and like all the hot things. We had Santorini on the list long before it became the darling. Now we didn't do much with Jura, but maybe that's a trend that we missed. But we weren't afraid to experiment and to go out and do different things and turn people on to exciting things, as long as it's helpful if you have a pairing program with a tasting menu where you can really kind of control that and move some wine that maybe wouldn't sell on the list, and you can use that.
Would you use a core event if you were on the floor today?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really exciting thing. I've got one in my bag. I used it to show wines all the time. But I think it's a tool that hasn't quite sorted itself out as to how to make it work. I think the people that are doing it right maybe have an isolated small section of things that they make available. Maybe you pour off a allocated wine or something that's really cool. But I think if you open it up to your entire list, that's going to open up some serious logistical problems from doing inventories of partials and just keeping those wines fresh.
Inventory? Who does inventory?
Yeah, well, you count the liquor bottles, 0.9, 0.7,
yeah, right.
0.8. Imagine doing that with all your wines, too. And then storage for those upright bottles and all that. So I think it's a great tool. I wouldn't use it with a Solomon with a Vino lock because that ain't going to work. But yeah, I think it opens up the possibilities for a lot of exciting things you can do with wine programs. So yeah, absolutely.
That's the one that I would want. I was asked a couple years ago, how do we make money in a very small dining room that's a 16-course tasting menu, and we do about 12 covers a night. At the time, I just had no idea. Off the core event, it opens up a lot.
Or think about the possibilities of pouring something like Harlan by the ounce. You can charge enough that you can actually make you make your margin on it, but also give people a chance to taste a wine that they wouldn't normally be able to afford. And that's pretty cool.
Let's see. Certifications. And you see them popping up all over the place. You have the RUD program at the CIA, of course, the Quartermaster Sommeliers, EMW, WSET. We obviously have chosen to go down the road of the Quartermaster Sommeliers a little bit, but where do you see certification? How important is it? Do you want 15 initials after your name?
I don't want 15 initials, just 2 letters would be fine, actually.
But junior?
Yeah. For me, really, the court kind of took care of itself in that I did my intro and just was totally excited by what those guys had to offer. And I just said, that's the path I want to take. and I was in restaurants and I did that. That doesn't mean that it's any more legit or different than the, say, WSET program or the CWE program, which are all great programs. And there's a bunch more that maybe great programs, I just don't know them as well.
Right.
Like you said, the CIA one, I'm sure that the quality instruction there is outstanding. I mean, we know everybody that teaches there, and they're great. I don't know how that plays out nationally, the way the court does or the WSET does, but I'm sure it gives you the background to do what you want to do.
Do you think it's possible to really move up in the industry today without certifications, like maybe 15, 20 years ago?
I think it is. I mean, you know, you can look at guys like Raj Parr and Paul Greco and all these other guys. And now, granted, they're a little more senior, but there's still other guys that are coming up through the program that are not court people. I think one of the great things about the court, and one of the things I love about it, and it's something I actually notice out in the field, is the culture of court sommeliers. Yeah. There's a thing, the rigors of the testing process, the fact that you're getting beat down by masters all the time. You know, it puts in that humility and that service aspect. It's deeply ingrained into what you do in the court. And sometimes, not always, but occasionally you'll find somebody that's not quite buying into that, and they tend to sometimes fall into the stereotypes about sommeliers that people don't like, you know, that attitude thing and that kind of focus on themselves instead of service. I'm not saying that that's the case everywhere, but I think that if you do follow the court, that tends to get beaten out of you a lot. Sure. And I'm sure there's guys, you know, court somms that have that same problem. So we're definitely generalizing here. So I don't want to hear that, you know, it's all one thing or another. But I think the court is good for that. And there's a camaraderie amongst people in the court that you can connect with people right away.
Do you think that with the importance of certification, I see more and more people trying to get certified in these various programs that never want to be on the floor, be in retail, really have customer impact?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get that all the time when people talk about the different levels of the exams. Mm-hmm. And they refer to as level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And I think that's a big disservice to what the program is all about. They have names, and the names are very descriptive, and they help you to figure out what you get from that. The intro is the intro. It's a taste. It's an introduction. That's why it's called that. Certified is you're certified. It means you get the blessing saying you are a qualified person to work on the floor of a restaurant.
I don't want to age myself, but I missed that step.
Yeah, you know, advanced means you're advanced. It means you're a badass. And then master is master. You know, it's not level 4. It's right. Master. And, you know, those things, if you think about that, it helps you to approach the exams a little bit with a better mindset about what it takes to reach that level. And I really think that the court is brilliant in that they give you the pin when you've proven that you're functioning at that level. When I took the advanced, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm already functioning at an advanced somm level. All I'm missing is the pin. I'm here to go get with mine. Right. And I think when you think about that way, then you're going to succeed in the tests.
Now, I think we see, and obviously with some very notable exceptions, a lot of times when people do achieve the master and they get that beautiful red pin, they're off the floor. You're off the floor. How did you transition off the floor? Why? And do you want to go back on the floor? Why or why not?
I'll tell you one thing that we all miss. I mean, was with a whole bunch of high-level somms, tech somm, talking about, you know, we're all off the floor now. But one of the things we miss is that reaction, that initial hit when you walk to the table with a bottle in your hand, you know it's about to rock somebody's world. It's the perfect wine, and you open it, and you pour it in the glass, and you see that reaction. I mean, that's the best feeling of what you can do in this business, I think. And I do miss that, definitely. But I think, you know, I was thinking about this on the way down today, it's all a chain, and there's one end, there's a guy pruning the vines in the vineyard. The other end, there's the people drinking the wine in the glass. And everyone in between is somewhere in the middle, and you have to deal upstream and deal downstream. And the further upstream you are, the higher your perspective is. You influence more people, but you're a little bit further away from, you know, the actual experience of what you're doing. So I think when you're on the floor, yes, you get that great experience, but then as you back off and go to supplier or distributor level, you're influencing a wider group of people, and you're able to you know, have a greater effect cumulatively over time. So it's rewarding in its own regard, but yeah, I do miss the floor.
You do have a Twitter question on that topic.
Awesome.
People watching, thank you for joining the show.
All right.
Thank you for sending in your questions. This is from Sandra, 67, 7, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Sandra, for joining us. She says, so if you're, wait, it actually went away.
Oh, no.
I'll try to remember what she said.
You can paraphrase it, yeah.
Yeah. She said, is that equivalent to something about Broadway? So if you're serving on the floor, was it something to do with like being Broadway and going to TV and
Okay, yeah, I guess, I mean, I
getting
don't...
that instant gratification?
That's not my background, but I guess it is, you know? I mean, when you're on Broadway, you're like right there in front of the people, and you get that, the roar of the crowd.
Yeah, I think you have to really think about which restaurant you're at, because, you know, I might have been considered more off-Broadway, but...
Well, there's all different types, absolutely. And, you know, that's another thing. It's important that, you know, another crusade of mine is that it's important at every level that you care about the food and wine combination. It's not just what you read things about sommeliers and they go straight to, you know, a place like Gary Danko or, you know, Danielle, where they've got a team of Somms on the floor, and they wouldn't think of not having 4 Somms and coverage for their 10,000 plus bottle cellar, which is great. And that's awesome. And that's, you know, that's where Formula One is, but then Formula One has to translate down to the cars in the street. And I think it's important that no matter what you have people that care about food and wine in your everyday restaurants and your mid-level restaurants and your high-level restaurants. And it's all, you know, part of that progression that's going to advance the cause for everybody.
So you think about the floor that you're happy you don't do anymore.
That I'm happy I don't do anymore?
Yes, like, you know, the hours.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's funny. I mean, a lot of the things that people complain about, I really didn't miss. I mean, I don't, you know, I wasn't that bothered by inventory, for example. And that's something I would think people don't, you know, oh, I don't have to do inventory anymore. I like doing inventory because I get to put my hands on the bottles and I could read the labels and I could see and connect with what I had. And so that night I'd go on the floor and I'd say, I know I got 3 bottles of that. I could sell that. And it was a reminder and a reconnection to what I had and to my program. So if I didn't do inventory for a while, I would feel like I really didn't know what was in the cellar. And I think the strength of your program, this is something I learned from Gregory Castles at the Laundry, was the strength of your program depends on how tight your cellar is. And if your cellar is tight, your inventory is in place, you know where everything is, you know what your cost is, you can go out on the floor and confidently sell and feel great about what you're doing. All
right, we're getting down to the 5-minute stretch here, so I want to ask some basic questions. You're building a wine program, and I don't care about I don't care about anything. What is one New World White that would be on what's the first New World White you would write in? And, you know, you can plug what you sell, or you can just say, you know what, I would not. Actually, I'm going to make you not talk about wines you sell.
Okay, not wines that I sell.
You cannot.
Well, you know, it's funny, because when you write a list, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And now that I've been in the field for a long time, and I write a list, it's a lot about relationships and about the people whose story I want to take forward.
But let's not go too deep. I want a New World White that's going on.
Well, I was going to say, one winery that I've always, you know, had a close affinity for is Chapelet. And I've always loved their Chenin Blanc. So, you know, I would call up Emily and say, can I have some Chapelet Chenin Blanc? And when I wrote the list at Spoon, that was the first domestic white I put on there. And I got some from April Collins there, you know, and she got me some. So, yeah, you know, but it's...
What about Old World White?
Old World White? Oh, that's easy. Chablis. I don't know which one. I mean, that's nitpicking, yeah.
No.
There's so many good ones.
No,
I Patrick Pew's or something like that.
Yeah, this one's actually smoking.
Terroir de Fille or Chiché, maybe something like that. But yeah, you gotta. For me, Chablis has been such a valuable tool in every program that I use as a way to make friends, as a way to connect with people, even if it's just pour them a splash where they have a seafood tower while they're waiting for their steaks. You know, it's that kind of thing where you can use it. It's important to have, and it's so useful.
Okay. Give me a must-have New World red.
Napa Cabernet. Whose? Corzin Cabernet. I got a shot.
Kronos or Napa?
You know, I've always really liked the Napa. I mean, even though, I like that Napa Cab. It's good stuff.
Give me one Old World red.
Barolo. Which one? Let's say
Monfortino. I'd be done with it.
Now, okay, let's go with Produttori, Cru, Paille, Barbaresco.
Good value.
Sticking with my email address.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, those are the fun things. Desert island wine, but variety. Desert island variety.
Riesling.
Riesling.
Yeah.
And what are we drinking?
Well, this is Solomon and Hoff Kogel. It's been on the show before. It seems to find its way in my bag quite a bit.
Yeah, I can understand why. It's
beguiling.
I mean,
it's great. I love Austrian wines. They have history and innovation, and they're exciting, and they're food friendly, and they're just great. And the Solomons are an amazing family. And what's not to love about it? It's even got this fun little vino lock you can play with.
Not for the Corbin.
Yeah, no Corbin, but yeah, you just drink it.
If anyone ever wants to talk about Riesling not being an aromatic grape, needs to smell this.
Yeah, it's pretty explosive. And then the other one is Domaine du Seigneur. This is a little Southern Rhone wine from Lirac. It's a Grenache Mourvedre blend, and it's really beautiful stuff too.
And what are our price points on these guys?
Let's see. This is about $20, and this is about $25.
Awesome.
Yeah, retail.
Give me I want to try to go back to young Somms, people not young Somms, not floor smallers, people who have, like you did, gotten the keys to the castle early in their career. They're responsible for building a program, either from scratch or inheriting. Let me have 3 key pieces of advice. You've already given a lot of it, but we're just going to reiterate.
The best advice I got from Michael Flynn, was always taste everything you can get your hands on. You know, if there's an opportunity to taste new wine, do it, because you never know what you're going to find, which leads to the corollary of being available. You know, the more you're out there, the more you interact. And that's part of the chain that I was talking about. You know, the next step up the chain, if you're a buyer, if you're working in a restaurant on the floor, you're serving the guests, but you also have to get that wine. So you have to work with your suppliers and stay current, because most of what I've learned about wine, I've learned from my suppliers, from the distributors that brought me great wines to taste, that introduced me to winemakers, and, you know, I got tremendous experiences because, you know, I was open and available to learn and take advantage of the resources that were made available to me by my suppliers.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And give me one more, something fun.
Something fun.
Gotta have fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all fun. I mean, that's why we do it. You know, it's the feeling that you get when you walk out of a great service. I mean, that keeps you coming back and schlepping cases and doing hours of inventory in a cold cellar and all that stuff.
Yeah, but you like inventory. That's weird.
I'm a geek. What are you gonna do?
Well, Scott, happy birthday again, and I need a service nightmare.
The service nightmare.
You need a service nightmare.
All right. Well, I had a good one. So I'm at the mansion. I'm working the floor. I'm selling half bottles because I love to work with half bottles.
And Mansion at Turtle Creek in Dallas.
Mansion at Turtle Creek. I'm on the patio.
Someone's from Croatia and doesn't know the Mansion at Turtle Creek.
Mansion at Turtle Creek, Dallas, Texas, the fine dining destination for a number of years. And I'm working on the veranda. It's a kind of enclosed patio. It's really nice outside. You know, I'm going to the table. I served him a bottle of Derenberg Dead Arm Shiraz in a half bottle, because I think they split their menu. One person ordered like a seafood dish and the guy ordered lamb or something. So we're going to go with the Shiraz here. Dead Arm, one of the iconic wines of Australia. So I go to the table. I've got the half bottle. I present it, put the worm into it, pop the cork, pull the cork. Well, you know, those Australian corks, they're at the end of the food chain when it comes to quality corks.
It's very far from Portugal, it is true.
So the cork is not as long as what's sticking out of this bottle here. The cork is about 3/4 of an inch long. So the worm on my opener had gone through it about an inch. And so I'm putting pressure on it to throw it. I had single throw. I was, single throw. I pulled that sucker right out. Yeah. And the whole thing just went boom. And all the pressure, leverage against it, caused the bottle to just go whoosh like that, because I was prying against it, and there was no resistance, so it went wham, and Shiraz went all over the table.
Luckily, it's not a high pigment grade.
Yeah, it was easy, but that was pretty embarrassing. We got a little Gruner, sponged it out. High acid white wine is the best way to take red wine out.
Comped a couple desserts.
Yeah, a little dry cleaning maybe. It was not pleasant, but they were cool. thankfully they weren't they weren't bad about it. It was when they saw the cork with an inch of corkscrew coming through the backside of it, they were kind of like, wow, that is kind of surprising. But yeah, it was a shock. It was definitely a shock to the system.
Awesome, Scott. Well, thank you. And
all right, it's fun to be in this chair.
yeah.
All right.
Get to answer questions.
That's okay. We'll move back to the other side next month. We've got some cool people lined up. Talked to a few people in Texas and around Napa Valley, and we've got more guests coming. And maybe Kenny, you did a good job hosting. You come in and co-host sometime.
We will be back.
Fantastic.
Sure.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers, bud.